In 1954, the average American farm kitchen ran on tools you could fix with a hammer and hand down to your grandchildren. No batteries, no warranties, no apps, just iron, tin, and stoneware built to outlive the people who used them. But here's the strange part. Number 14 on this list could do something your $200 stand mixer still can't. And number 3, collectors now pay more for one than your grandmother paid for her entire kitchen. These 30 objects sat in nearly every farmhouse from Iowa to Georgia, used every single day until the world quietly threw them out. Before we start, hit that subscribe button because some of these you're going to wish you still had. Let's count down the 30 things every 1950s farmhouse kitchen had that almost no one owns anymore. Number 30, the whistling enamel tea kettle. It held a permanent spot on the back burner of every farmhouse range. Speckled blue or cream-colored graniteware, dented from years of being knocked against the cast iron, it sang the same shrill note morning after morning. A farm wife filled it before dawn, set it over the coals, and went out to gather eggs, knowing the whistle would call her back. A good enamelware kettle cost around $1.25 from the Sears catalog in 1952. It lasted decades because there was nothing inside to break. The sound of that whistle was the sound of the day beginning, coffee about to be poured, hands about to be warmed. Children learned to recognize it the way they recognize their own mother's voice. Today, electric kettles click off in silence, and that bright, insistent song has all but vanished from American mornings. Number 29. The wire egg basket swung from a nail by the back door, waiting for the trip to the henhouse. Made of galvanized wire shaped into an open dome, it let a farm wife rinse the eggs right in the basket and let them drip dry without breaking a single shell. A standard basket held 3 or 4 dozen, enough for a morning's gathering, and cost less than 50 cents at the feed store. The wire kept the eggs cool and visible, so cracks showed at a glance. Children were sent out with the basket as their first real chore, learning to slip a careful hand beneath a warm, complaining hen. Oral histories from the Midwest recall the gentle clink of the basket against the screen door, a sound that meant breakfast was on its way. When eggs came stamped in foam cartons from the grocery store, the wire basket was hung up for the last time. Number 28. The oilcloth tablecloth covered nearly every kitchen table in rural America, bright with cherries, roosters, or gingham checks. Made of cotton coated in linseed oil and later vinyl, it could be wiped clean with a damp rag in seconds, which mattered when 6 children and a hired hand ate 3 meals a day at the same table. A yard cost about 35 cents, sold off the bolt at the dry goods store, and a single cloth survived years of spilled milk and dropped forks. The pattern faded at the corners, where elbows rested and conversations happened. Mothers chose the print with care, a small splash of cheer in a hard-working room. The oilcloth turned an ordinary table into the center of family life. Today it survives mostly in vintage shops, replaced by bare laminate and paper towels. Number 27. The wall-mounted coffee grinder bolted beside the pantry door turned whole beans into the morning's first ritual. A farm wife poured beans into the glass hopper, cranked the iron handle, and caught the grounds in a little drawer below, the rich smell filling the kitchen before the sun was fully up. Whole beans kept far longer than ground coffee, so thrifty households bought them by the pound and ground only what the day required. A cast iron grinder ran about $2 and lasted a lifetime. The slow, rhythmic crank was a chore handed to children, the steady grind marking the minutes until coffee. Diaries from farm families recall the sound as part of the dawn chorus, alongside the rooster and the kettle. When pre-ground coffee in vacuum cans took over, the grinder went quiet, its handle stilled for good. Number 26. The sad iron sat heavy on the stovetop, 3 or 4 to a set, heating while the laundry waited. Solid cast iron with a detachable wood handle, a farm wife would clamp the handle onto a hot iron, press until it cooled, then swap it for the next one, warming on the range. The word sad came from an old term meaning solid, and solid they were, each one weighing 5 to 7 pounds. A set cost around $1.50 and was expected to last a generation. Ironing day was an all-day affair, the kitchen sweltering as shirts and tablecloths were pressed smooth. Oral histories recall the burned fingers, the test of a wet fingertip hissing against the metal, the pride in a crisp Sunday collar. When the electric iron arrived, the sad irons became doorstops, then antiques. Number 25. The tin match safe hung on the wall near the cook stove, holding the most important tool in a house run on fire. Stamped from decorated tin with a slot for strike anywhere matches and a curved lip below to catch the spent ones, it kept matches dry and within reach of whoever needed to light the stove, the lamp, or the lantern. A match safe cost only a dime, often given away with a flower purchase as advertising. In a farmhouse where every meal began with a struck match, its placement was no accident, always at adult height, always near the heat. Children were warned away from it sternly. The match safe represented the simple, dangerous fact that fire was made by hand every single day. When pilot lights and electric ignition arrived, the little tin box lost its purpose and slipped quietly off the wall. Number 24. The wooden salt box hung beside the stove, its hinged lid lifted 100 times a day by a floured hand. Salt clumped badly in the humid air of a working kitchen, so the box kept it dry and loose, ready to pinch into a pot or rub into a fresh-killed hog. A farm family bought salt in bulk, and the box held enough for a week of cooking, baking, and preserving. A painted tin or carved wood salt box cost under $1, and it often carried the word salt across the front in cheerful letters. Mothers reached for it without looking, measuring by feel the way their own mothers had taught them. The salt box was the busiest container in the room, worn smooth at the latch. Today, salt comes in a cardboard cylinder and the wall hook stands empty. Number 23. The bread box guarded the most precious staple in the house, sometimes 2 or 3 loaves at a time. Made of stamped tin or enameled metal with a roll top or hinged door, it kept homemade bread from going stale and protected it from mice in a house that backed onto a barn. A farm wife baked once or twice a week, often a half dozen loaves at a sitting, and the bread box stretched that effort across the days. A good box cost around $1 and lived on the counter for decades. The smell. When the lid opened, warm yeast and crust was the smell of a home that fed itself. Children sliced their own thick wedges after school, spread them with butter and jam. When sliced store bread in plastic bags took over, the bread box emptied out and was tucked away in a cellar. Number 22. The Foley food mill turned cooked fruit and vegetables into smooth sauce, soup, and baby food with a few turns of a handle. A round metal pan with a perforated bottom and a spring-loaded paddle, it pressed tomatoes into sauce while leaving skins and seeds behind. No electricity required. Canning season made it indispensable, when bushels of garden tomatoes had to become quarts of sauce before they spoiled. A Foley mill cost about $2 and was passed down like an heirloom. The steady crank was a familiar August sound, the farm wife's wrist aching by the dozenth jar. Oral histories recall children fed their first applesauce, milled by hand, still warm from the pot. When blenders and food processors arrived, The mill was retired, though cooks who still own one swear nothing else strains a sauce so cleanly. Number 21. The potato ricer pressed boiled potatoes through a bed of tiny holes, producing mashed potatoes lighter than any fork or masher could manage. A farm wife loaded the hopper, squeezed the long handles, and watched fluffy strands fall into the bowl below, ready for butter and cream. On a farm where potatoes appeared at nearly every supper, the ricer was the secret to mash that never turned gluey. It cost around 75 cents and was built of heavy tin that survived years of hard squeezing. Sunday dinner and holiday tables depended on it, the riced potatoes piled high beside the roast. Children fought over who got to work the handle and watched the potatoes emerge like worms to their endless delight. Today, most kitchens reach for a fork or an electric beater, and the ricer gathers dust in the back of the drawer. Number 20. The hand crank meat grinder clamped to the edge of the kitchen table on butchering day, ready to turn tough cuts into something the family could eat all winter. A farm wife fed scraps and trimmings into the hopper, turning the heavy handle while ground meat curled out the front for sausage, meatloaf, or burger. After the fall hog killing, the grinder ran for hours, the whole family taking turns at the crank. A cast iron grinder cost about $1.50 and was bolted, cleaned, and stored away until needed again. The work was hard, the kitchen cold with the door open to keep the meat from spoiling, but nothing went to waste. Oral histories recall the ache in young arms and the pride in a winter's worth of sausage. When pre-ground meat filled the butcher's case, the grinder vanished into the cellar. Number 19, the apple peeler and cherry pitter sped through the orchard's bounty when the trees came in all at once. The cast iron peeler clamped to the table, spearing an apple on its prongs and stripping the skin in one long ribbon as the handle turned. The cherry pitter punched stones from a steady stream of fruit, headed for pies and preserves. In a farm with its own orchard, these gadgets meant the difference between saving the harvest and watching it rot. A peeler ran about $1, the pitter half that. Children gathered around to watch the apple skins spiral off in a single unbroken curl, a small magic that never got old. The kitchen smelled of cut apples and cinnamon for days. When supermarket produce arrived year-round, the seasonal frenzy ended and the clamp-on tools were forgotten. Number 18, the cookie press and the dented cookie tin came out together every December, turning butter and sugar into the year's most anticipated treats. The press, a metal tube fitted with shaped plates, pushed dough into wreaths, stars, and trees that no rolling pin could match. The tins, often reused from store-bought biscuits or holiday gifts, kept the cookies fresh and hidden from small hands. A cookie press cost around $1.50 and was used so rarely it lasted a lifetime. Christmas baking filled the farmhouse with the smell of vanilla and almond, the counters crowded with cooling racks. Children waited for the first broken cookie, the baker's tacks, to be slipped into their hands. The tins rattled with anticipation. Today, slice and bake dough and plastic containers have replaced the ritual, and the press sits unused in an attic box. Number 17, the nutmeg grater and the spice tins held the small luxuries that lifted plain farm cooking into something special. Whole nutmegs were grated fresh over rice pudding and custard on a tiny tin grater, the scent far sharper than anything in a jar. The spices themselves came in colorful tins, cinnamon, cloves, allspice, lined up on a shelf or tucked into a cabinet rack. Spices were expensive, bought in small amounts and used with care, a pinch making all the difference in a pie or a ham. A nutmeg grater cost $0.10, the tins a few cents more. A farm wife knew her spices by smell and color, measuring by memory. Oral histories recall the warm aroma of a holiday kitchen, nutmeg and cloves mingling with wood smoke. Now spices come pre-ground in identical jars, and the little grater has all but disappeared. Number 16. The sausage stuffer worked alongside the grinder when the hogs were butchered, packing seasoned meat into casings for the smokehouse. A tall cylinder with a plunger and a spout, it pushed ground pork into cleaned intestines, the farm wife guiding the casing as her husband turned the crank. Smoked and hung in the cellar, those sausages fed the family through the lean months of winter and spring. A stuffer cost a few dollars and was used once or twice a year, then scrubbed and stored. The whole operation was a family event, cold hands and hard work rewarded with links that would last until planting time. Oral histories recall the smell of sage and pepper, the careful tying off of each link. When the corner store sold sausage by the pound, the stuffer fell silent for good. Number 15. The kraut cutter turned a fall cabbage harvest into crocks of sauerkraut that would keep all winter. A long wooden board fitted with angled blades, it shredded heads of cabbage into fine ribbons as the farm wife slid them back and forth across the steel. The shreds were salted, packed into stoneware crocks, and left to ferment into a tangy staple rich in vitamins through the cold months. A kraut cutter cost about $1 and was shared among neighbors at cutting time. The work filled the kitchen with the sharp green smell of fresh cabbage, the rhythmic scrape of the blade marking the afternoon. Children pressed the kraut down with clean fists, fascinated by the bubbling crock weeks later. When canned and refrigerated kraut filled grocery shelves, the cutter was hung on a barn wall and forgotten. Number 14. The cast iron corn stick pan baked golden corn muffins shaped like little ears of corn, crisp on the outside and tender within. Heated until smoking in the oven, the heavy pan gave cornbread a crust that no modern nonstick pan can match, the iron holding and radiating heat the way nothing else does. Cornmeal was cheap and plentiful, milled from the farm's own corn, and cornbread appeared at nearly every supper. A cornstick pan cost around $1 and improved with every use as the seasoning built up. The sizzle when the batter hit the hot iron promised a perfect crust. Oral histories recall children fighting it over the crispiest stick, the one from the corner of the pan. The iron pan outlasted 3 generations of cooks. Today, soft store muffins have replaced it, and few kitchens own a pan that can deliver that crackling crust. Number 13. The lard tin and lard press held the fat that made farm baking possible, rendered from the family's own hogs. After butchering, fat was trimmed, cut small, bama, and pressed through the iron lard press, the rendered grease stored in a large tin in the cool cellar. That snow-white lard went into pie crusts, biscuits, and frying, prized for the flakiness it gave pastry that no shortening could equal. A press cost a few dollars, and the tin held enough lard to last most of a year. A flaky pie crust depended entirely on good lard, and a farm wife guarded her supply. Children learned that the best biscuits in the county came from a lard-crusted hand. For decades, lard was the gold standard of the farm kitchen. When vegetable shortening was marketed as cleaner and more modern, the lard tin slowly emptied and was never refilled. Number 12. The stoneware crock anchored the pantry corner, a heavy salt-glazed vessel used for everything from pickling to storing eggs in water glass. Made of thick brown or cream pottery, often marked with a blue number showing its gallon size, a crock could hold sauerkraut, brined cucumbers, salt pork, or sourdough starter for months. The glazed interior resisted acid and kept contents cool in the cellar. A 2-gallon crock cost about $1 and was treated as permanent kitchen equipment, passed from mother to daughter. The crock represented the whole philosophy of farm life, putting food by against the seasons, trusting your own hands over any store. Oral histories recall lifting the heavy stone lid to find pickles ready by November. Today, those same crocks sell as antiques and planters, their original purpose forgotten by most who own them. Number 11. The PIE safe stood against the kitchen wall, its punched tin panels hiding pies and bread while letting air circulate and keeping flies out. A wooden cabinet with decorative tin doors pierced in stars and hearts. It predated the refrigerator and solved the problem of cooling and storing baked goods in a warm farmhouse. A farm wife who baked 4 or 5 pies for a threshing crew needed somewhere to keep them, and the pie safe was the answer. A new one cost several dollars, but most were handmade or handed down. The pierced tin patterns were both practical and beautiful, often made by the man of the house in the off-season. Children knew exactly which panel hid the apple pie and learned the hard way not to sneak a slice. When refrigerators took over, the pie safe became a curiosity, prized today for its folk art tin. Number 10. The Hoosier cabinet was the original all-in-one kitchen workstation, decades before the fitted kitchen existed. A freestanding cabinet with a built-in flour bin and sifter, a pull-out enamel work surface, spice racks, and a sugar jar, it put everything a baker needed within arm's reach. For farm wives whose kitchens had few built-in cupboards, the Hoosier was a revelation, organizing the chaos of daily baking into one efficient unit. A new cabinet cost between $15 and $30 in the 1920s and was still in heavy use through the 1950s, often the most valued piece of furniture in the house. The flour sifter alone saved countless trips across the room. Mothers worked at the pull-out counter for hours, rolling dough and measuring sugar. As modern kitchens built cabinetry into the walls, the freestanding Hoosier was pushed aside, surviving now as a sought-after antique. Number 9. The butter churn sat ready whenever the cream jar filled, transforming the morning's milk into butter through nothing but patience and muscle. Whether a tall wooden dasher churn or a glass jar with a hand crank and wooden paddles, it demanded 10, 20, sometimes 40 minutes of steady work before the cream finally turned. A farm with a milk cow made its own butter. Weekly, the surplus traded at the general store for goods the farm couldn't produce. A glass churn cost about $2. The rhythmic slosh and thump of churning was a familiar kitchen sound, a chore passed to children once their arms were strong enough. Oral histories recall the magic moment when the cream broke and butter suddenly formed in golden clumps. The fresh butter, salted and pressed into molds, tasted like nothing from a store. When dairies and refrigeration made store butter cheap, the churn was retired to the porch. Number 8. The cream separator stood near the kitchen or in the milk house, spinning fresh milk into cream and skim with a hand-cranked centrifuge. A farm wife or one of the children turned the heavy handle to bring it up to speed, then poured in the warm milk, watching cream flow from one spout and skim from another. For any farm that sold cream or made its own butter, the separator was essential, recovering far more cream than letting milk sit ever could. A separator was a major purchase, $50 to $100, often bought on credit and treated with great care. The WHIR of the spinning bowl filled the morning, the disc needing a thorough wash after every use. Oral histories recall the endless cranking and the endless cleaning, the price of fresh cream. When farms stopped keeping cows and bought dairy at the store, the separator was sold for scrap or left to rust. Number 7. The ice box cooled the farmhouse kitchen before electricity reached the countryside, an insulated wooden cabinet chilled by a block of ice. The ice came from the icemen in town or was cut from a frozen pond in winter and packed in sawdust in the ice house to last through summer. A farm wife arranged milk, butter, and leftovers around the melting block, emptying the drip pan beneath each day so it would not overflow. A good oak icebox cost around $20, and it was the height of convenience in its time. Keeping food cold was a constant negotiation, the ice always shrinking, and the warmest days were the hardest. Children were sent to chip ice for lemonade as a summer treat. The ice box kept families fed safely through the hot months for decades. When rural electrification brought refrigerators to the farm, the ice box was emptied and repurposed as a cabinet, and the iceman's route faded into memory. Number 6. The galvanized milk can and the dairy box at the end of the lane connected the farm to the wider world of milk. Tall steel cans holding 10 gallons each carried the morning's milk to the road for the creamery truck. The empties returned washed and ready by afternoon. Families who did not keep cows had their milk delivered in glass bottles, set in an insulated box by the door with the cream risen to a plug at the top. A milk can cost several dollars and was stamped with the farm's number, and the glass bottles carried a deposit of a few cents. The clank of cans on the loading platform was a daily rhythm of country life. Children skimmed the cream from the bottle top before anyone could stop them. As bulk tanks and cartons took over, the cans and bottles disappeared, and the dairy box was left empty by the door. Number 5. The pressure canner ruled the farm kitchen every late summer, sealing the garden's bounty into jars that would feed the family all winter. A heavy aluminum pot with a locking lid and a jiggling pressure gauge, it processed low-acid vegetables and meat safely at temperatures no boiling water bath could reach. A farm wife filled dozens of jars a day during the August rush: green beans, corn, vegetables, tomatoes, even chicken. The canner hissing and rocking on the stove for hours. A pressure canner cost around $15 and was the single most important tool for putting food by. The kitchen turned into a furnace, steam fogging the windows, jars cooling in rows on every surface. Oral histories recall the satisfying ping of lids sealing through the evening, the pantry shelves slowly filling. Freezers and supermarkets made year-round food easy, home canning faded, and the canner went into the basement. Number 4, Jadate dishware glowed pale green on farmhouse tables and in restaurant kitchens across America, beloved for being cheap, sturdy, and beautiful all at once. Made by Fire King and others from opaque jade-colored glass, the mugs, bowls, and plates resisted chipping and stood up to daily farm use far better than fine china. Much of it arrived free, packed inside boxes of oatmeal or given away at the movie theater and the gas station, so a family could build a whole set without spending a dime. A farm wife mixed her batter in nesting jadeite bowls and poured coffee into thick jadeite mugs every morning. The soft green color brought a quiet cheer to a hard-working room. Children grew up eating from those familiar plates. Today, collectors pay stunning prices for the same pieces that once came free in a cereal box, and a complete set can cost more than the farm wife's whole kitchen did. Number 3. The set of Pyrex nesting mixing bowls became the workhorse of the post-war farm kitchen. Indestructible glass in cheerful colors that did everything. The classic set, a yellow, green, red, and blue bowl that nested inside one another, mixed cake batter, held rising bread dough, served potato salad, and stored leftovers, all without cracking or staining. Introduced in bright colors in 1945, the bowls cost only a few dollars for the set and seemed to last forever, surviving drops that would shatter any ceramic. A farm wife used the big yellow bowl daily, the others for everything else. The colors brightened the counter and the table alike, a little splash of modern optimism. Oral histories recall those bowls at every gathering, the same set for 40 years. Today, vintage Pyrex sets in good condition sell for hundreds of dollars, far more than your grandmother ever paid, hunted by collectors who treasure what she used without a second thought. Number 2, the hand-crank Dover egg beater whipped cream, beat eggs, and mixed batter with nothing but a turn of the wrist, the most beloved gadget in the drawer. 2 intermeshing wheels of tin spun a pair of beaters at high speed, doing in a minute what a fork took 10 to accomplish. Before electric mixers reached the farm, this simple tool made angel food cake, meringue, and whipped cream possible, and it never needed a plug or a battery. A good rotary beater cost around 50 cents and worked flawlessly for decades. The cheerful whir of the beater meant something special was coming. A cake for a birthday, cream for a pie. Children begged to turn the handle, watching egg whites climb into soft white peaks. It was the one kitchen tool everyone could use. When electric mixers took over, the hand beater was pushed to the back of the drawer, though many still insist it whips cream just as well. And finally, in first place, the cast iron cook stove stood as the beating heart of every farmhouse in the 1950s, the single object around which the entire kitchen and the entire family was built. Fired by wood or coal, it cooked every meal, heated every drop of water, warmed the whole room through the long country winters, and dried the children's mittens on a rack above. A farm wife learned its moods like a second language, knowing exactly where the hot spots were, how to coax a steady oven from a stick of dry oak, how to keep a fire banked overnight so the morning came warm. A good range cost between $40 and $100 and was expected to serve a lifetime, blackened and polished, scrubbed and stoked, never once unplugged because there was nothing to plug in. The stove was where coffee perked before dawn, where bread rose on the warming shelf, where cold hands found heat and tired bodies gathered after dark. Oral histories from across rural America return again and again to that stove, the iron warmth at the center of childhood, the smell of wood smoke and baking bread, the place where the family came together 3 times a day without fail. When gas and electric ranges arrived, clean and instant and effortless, the great iron stove was hauled out to the barn or sold for scrap, and with it went the constant tending, the gathered warmth, and the slow rhythm of a kitchen that ran on fire. Across all 30 entries from the whistling kettle that opened our list to the mighty cook stove at the very top, these vanished objects tell a single story. The 1950s farmhouse kitchen ran on tools built to last, made to be repaired, and meant to be handed down. Nothing was disposable, and almost nothing was wasted. The wire egg basket, the stoneware crock, the hand crank beater, each one asked for a little more effort and gave back a little more flavor, a little more connection, a little more meaning. Tell me in the comments which of these you remember in your grandmother's kitchen and which one you would bring back tomorrow if you could. Because these weren't just things. They were the heart of how America fed itself and how a family came together around a warm iron stove.